Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another Motor1.com test car happy hour. This time also being kind of cross broadcast to Inside EVs. We had a hot new electric vehicle that we wanted to talk about, so we definitely wanted to make sure we captured as many Inside EVs readers and viewers as possible. My name is Seyth Miersma. I'm the editor-in-chief. Joining me today is Brandon Turkus, managing editor. And we have three cars to talk about. And because we are sort of dual simulcasting here to both sites, we are going to start in order of electrification. So we're going to start with the full BEV. We're going to move to a hybrid, and then we're going to go to a dyno juice burning only fun thing here. So if you guys are watching right now, just a quick reminder. First of all, thank you for tuning in. Second of all, wherever you're watching, if you're catching this on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere on social media, you are more than welcome to leave us a comment or ask us a question on the platform that you're on, and we will get that here in the chat. We will do our very best to answer it. We absolutely love those questions. They help the conversation. And if you are listening, well, we'll talk about this later, but we're also on audio streaming later. So if you like the podcast and you decide that you would like to listen to it and not catch it, aren't always able to catch it live, you can find us on audio streaming as well. With that said, let's jump right in. First of all, I'm going to say hi to Mark Longoria, who I'm not sure if you're raising your hand or just saying hello, but hello. Please do ask a question if you have one. Jonathan Brown, glad to have you. Glad that you're catching a live show. And Justin Schultz, we're kicking off with ID.7. So let's get started on that. So hopefully some of you were able to see the ID.7 prototype first drive that we published on Inside EVs and Motor One. Oh, geez. What was that, Tuesday?
I don't know, man. It's been a hell of a week. It's been a hell of a week.
Go up.
Tuesday sounds right.
Tuesday evening, yeah. I believe it was a European embargo at midnight, so Tuesday evening. So it's been up for a couple of days. I was lucky enough to go out to Spain to join Volkswagen to drive a very early prototype of the ID.7 on a pretty short drive loop. And I'm going to say here what I said in the article. Unfortunately, Volkswagen has kind of two embargoes for this. So we got to do the prototype drive and learn quite a lot about the car. And then we stopped and did workshops where we learned even more. So some of the stuff that I saw and experienced, I'm still under embargo for. So you guys will forgive me in advance if you ask a question that I'm unable to answer because of the embargo. We are going to update that article and have a lot more to come when that embargo is lifted. So hopefully that doesn't get too weird. But Brandon, let's talk a little bit about ID.7, right? So this is Volkswagen's new EV flagship, or it will be when it goes on sale. For those of us in the US, we expect that these cars will start to be delivered the second half of 2024, probably as a 2025 model year car. So we're a ways out from this vehicle. So it was awesome to be able to get any time with it at all, honestly, this early. The car that I drove, although it will be offered in dual motor formats and in Europe with multiple batteries, in the car that I drove had a 82 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery. 77 kilowatt hours of that is usable. This is the single motor rear wheel drive car. And honestly, I was super impressed. We were just talking about this. This is a single motor car that somehow Volkswagen is squeezing 282 horsepower, and was it 402 pounds? 402. So the very first impression that I have of driving this thing was, wow, it's actually quite quick in a straight line for a single motor EV. So we're just chatting about this. Like, is there anything else out there right now that's making that much power and torque out of a single motor?
I know the Hyundai Ioniq 6 that I just drove, and you can read that review from Monday at midnight, is 288 horsepower with two motors. In fact, it's about the same. No, it's way up on torque, or I don't know. But it's similar. It's similar performance to this with a two motor setup.
Yeah, I think that the only thing that comes close is, I believe that Tesla's single motor Model 3 is right around there too. I think it's 280, 285, something like that. So At the very least, Volkswagen will be joining the top of the class with the output from this single motor. And as I said, we were driving on mountain roads, kind of either fully up or fully down the mountain the entire time. So it was really difficult to even get a gauge on something like 0 to 60 time and acceleration. But I would be shocked if it's not kind of in the sixes, maybe even high fives for something like this. It felt quite sprightly. So the other thing to note about this car, and I think you and I, you brought this up when we were first editing this story, was I don't know that a lot of people recognize, because it's still sort of tall, that this is actually a sedan, right? This is a long, very roomy lift back sedan. So I was shuttled to and from our location in a Euro spec Passat wagon. And although the Passat wagon
I'm sure that was very intentional.
Yeah, well, actually, they had other shuttle vehicles, so it was just kind of the luck of the draw that I got in the wagon. I think there were some Passat sedans as well. I was kind of stunned by how similar in apparent size, certainly the space for humans, that this was with the Passat. And in fact, I would have to go back and look at the actual measurements, but the back seat itself is incredibly roomy. You guys, if you've listened to this podcast before, or read anything that I've written before, you know that I'm giant. I'm 6'5". I had so much space in the rear seat in the rear of this car, easily able to sit behind myself. There are no issues. Sometimes tall folks also encounter, even in like cabins that are sort of long, if you're sitting in the passenger seat, the glove box and stuff will come down low enough that it kind of hurts your leg room. Nothing like that in this car. I can't talk a ton about the cabin itself. They kept in this prototype, the rear cabin was all clad up. But suffice it to say that they've got all of their kind of best and newest design work involved here, and an awful lot of new technology inside of the vehicle as well. One thing, and Brandon, I'm curious to hear your feedback on, is Volkswagen has basically reduced the center instrument panel, where you'd expect to see some sort of gauge cluster, a digital gauge cluster. That's pretty much gone. And what's there is, it maybe is like 3 inches by 1 inch high, a small little display that you can see right through the steering wheel that has just basic information. It's not configurable. And then you have a large HUD directly in front of you that I can say is configurable, but I can't say much else about right now. We'll definitely go into more detail there, but the point is that they've replaced the traditional gauge cluster with a HUD. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Which is kind of the way I feel about this entire car. Just to clarify, the horsepower I was talking about was wrong for the Ioniq 6. It was for the EQE that I drove earlier this week, the dual motor model. But I understand Volkswagen's. No, actually, I don't understand it. I know what they're trying to do. It's a very much like we are making cars safer, and we are doing this and making them more convenient, and that'd be really, like, I'd be totally on board with that if there was any evidence over the last 20 years to suggest that it actually like played out that way.
Mm-hmm.
But German automakers, they aim really, really high, and the results, at least in the first generation or so of these like kind of tectonic shifts, are always kind of messy. Like, you look back to iDrive, like original iDrive, and this does kind of feel like an iDrive like moment where they're supplanting what we know by minimizing the cluster and relying on a head-up display for all the information. It's really, no one has leaned quite that hard into it.
Yeah, I think that Jonathan, I've got some other comments here too, but I just want to hit on one. Jonathan Brown just wrote that he's thought that HUD should replace instrument panels since he purchased his C5 Z06, which is not the first production car, one of the very first production cars that had a head-up display.
I'll tell you this though, like the thing about that Z06 is, and Seth knows, he's been waiting for me to go in on this. The thing about that Z06 is you could use the head-up display if you wore polarized sunglasses.
Yeah.
You cannot use the head-up display in a BMW or a Mercedes or a Volkswagen or a Hyundai or any car except for like a few old GMs. If, like Seth and I, you wear polarized sunglasses. they just nullify the graphics. So I'm very eager to drive the ID.7 and not be able to have any idea what's going on except at night.
Yeah, I think that if you were, let me say this, like I tend to opt for polarized sunglasses too, just for overall eye health and safety, I suppose. But if I knew that this was a car that I was really interested in, I'm sure that I would be willing to make the sacrifice to get a traditional lens on my sunglasses to use the head-up display.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, and then
you are kind of you're creating, the attempt is to create something that's much safer by keeping hands on the wheel, eyes on the road. Right. And you are nullifying that to a certain extent when you're causing some percentage of the population of your drivers to not be able to see all of that information that you want them to see. Right. So there is that. But
can we just highlight, and I'm going to veer us wildly off topic, but John 209 coming in with just the spiciest, best take. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. I don't know where you're coming from with that. I'm glad he came though.
Yes, John 209. All right. So for those of you who are under 30 years old, it wasn't just Ford. There are some other, actually, didn't BMW do these too? There
were a lot of people that did them.
Yeah, the automatic seatbelts. The seatbelts that have like this little mechanical arm that like comes out from behind you and wants to stab you in the ear sometimes. Just the most annoying thing in the entire world. John, I'm not sure if you're being sarcastic or not. I would imagine you are, but no.
I hope you're not. I hope you're not. For
the automatic seatbelt question.
I still get freaked out every time I get like a BMW convertible and like it extends out, like it
right.
The seatbelt thing slides out so you can like access it easier.
Yeah. So let's go. I want to go back quickly. Justin Schultz said that those are great specs for the single motor. I wish that VW would bring the ID.3 to the US. So ID.3 quickly, I think they were all very enamored of ID.3 just from a design perspective. It looks like kind of the GTI of the future. It's got design language that feels very Volkswagen, that boxy hatchback, but now rounded off at the corners and a streamlined version of a shape that we've seen from Volkswagen for decades now. I don't have any special information. I've heard nothing about them bringing it to the US, and they're saying right now that they're not. So
I'll tell you what, when I went to the Munich Auto Show in 2021, I rode around in an ID.3, and it is based purely on like space and like versatility. It is the best Golf in the history of Golfs. I mean, It is. It's like you were saying with the ID.7. It is so roomy in there. The flat floor does such good things for it. I obviously didn't drive it, but just riding around it, I'm like this. I wish they sold that in the US. I'm totally with you on that. It's a really nice setup.
I think that lots of us from that have strong attachments to Volkswagens from an enthusiast point of view. That really want that to be great, and would like it to be widely available too. So one of the cool things about GTI is always that it's been a global car, right? It's been a shared language across borders.
So Seth, here's my question. This, you had ID.7 this week. I published Ioniq 6 earlier this week. Why sedans?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? I came up a little short of including this. I was thinking about, as you're kind of going through the writing process and thinking about ways in, I was considering kind of opening with that idea, right? Why would it be this, the everything about this car feels very relevant to what is happening in transportation right now, in personal transportation development right now, except for the form factor. And the best that I can come up with is Volkswagen is being clever in that, as I said, they're packaging this, they're packaging a lot of utility into this sedan shape, right? So don't forget, and if it's not obvious, because it wasn't to me going into this is a lift back, right? There's a large, long lift back there. I made the comparison to something like an A7. I made a comparison to my old guy, old Saab 9000. If you fold the seats, they don't fold completely flat, but they fold more or less flat and make a good floor to load stuff in and lift that up. Dude, you can get a lot of stuff back there, right? So there is real utility both for humans in the seats and for cargo should you need to have it with the rear seats folded. So
See, I didn't write about it, and I should have, but that was one of the complaints I had with the Ioniq 6 is a relatively small aperture with a traditional trunk, even in that shape. Liftbacks in general, I'm a big fan of them, and I don't quite understand why they're so uncommon in North America. Because you make a great point. For versatility, they're outstanding.
Yeah. So I want to get back to the second part of the question that we had, which is just about, I just want to touch on the motor again. Like, we're seeing great power density out of this is a revised motor unit from Volkswagen. My understanding is it's based on the existing one that you're finding in ID.4. What we know is that it's got stronger permanent magnets in the rotor. And what they're saying is more effective windings in the stator as well. I'm not 100% sure I understand what they mean by that. I would want to dig in, but was sort of unable to at the time, right? So we want to dig in there. The other net of this, though, other than power, there's also really greatly increased thermal efficiency is what we're being told too. Now, we don't even have this. I can't break the embargo because we don't have it yet. We don't have efficiency specs. We don't really have range specs for this thing. We know that Volkswagen is estimating WLTP range of 382 miles on the smaller battery pack. So this will come with a larger battery in markets other than the US. I think for sure Europe. I'm not positive if China is also getting the bigger battery pack.
Oh, so we're only getting one battery pack, and we're getting the smaller of the two.
That's right. Yeah, that's another one of these interesting decisions too.
For the second time in this podcast, it's a bold strategy, Cotton.
I don't really know why that would be.
It's got to be price. I mean, it's got to be. That's the only thing I can think of is they're trying to fit it into a price window.
I imagine that's true. And in the article that we published, we also did. And we disclaim this all too. We like to try and give as much information as we have. And in terms of price, we don't have any information from the brand. What we know is we saw what we were estimating for ID.4, for instance, before that came out and where it's at right now. And we look at other outlets, to be totally blunt. We look at what other people are reporting and estimating too. The best guesses all seem to be around that $40,000 mark as a starting price for this car in the US. I don't know if they'll hit that. Just as a reminder, I had to refresh it, but ID.4 in the US starts around 39. So it's not completely unprecedented. Now, this is meant to be upmarket. This is meant to be a flagship. So could that starting price be closer to 45? Sure. We really don't know. But
I mean, the thing is, long range battery in Ioniq 6 is around 44. Tesla Model 3 single motor is around 40. Like, you can see the market that they're aiming for with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's be honest, even if they keep it under 45 or at 45 to start, this is going to be a really compelling package. We're starting to talk about, we don't know the range either. I suspect, I have a very strong suspicion it's going to be more than the ID.4's 275, I think, because it's lower and a lot more aerodynamically efficient. Plus it's been revised. So we're guessing, a very conservative guess is 300. Well, I shouldn't say very conservative. A conservative guess is 300. As I read through some of the comments on Inside EVs, I gotta clap my hands to the Inside EVs commenters. Lots of them think that I'm out to lunch on that. They think it's going to be a lot more. I saw some really detailed breakdowns.
60 for a couple people.
People expecting 350, 325, things like that. So it'll be exciting to see what this gets rated at for EPA and for North America when it comes out. But so there are definitely questions about this car. You raised a huge one, Brandon. Like, why is it a big long sedan instead of an SUV? Why isn't the US getting kind of what will presumably be the best version of this car that we don't really know? But I think big picture, this feels like a more exciting step forward for Volkswagen for the ID platform than, I mean, Buzz is really cool, but Buzz feels like it's almost intended to be niche long term. This feels like Volkswagen really opening up the aperture on what they want to do with electric vehicles for a global market. I think that's what they do really well. So
I guess I can see that, but like, it's not, the aversion to sedans is not a unique North American thing. It's a European thing. It's gonna be a Chinese thing. So I don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled that there's another sedan, but like, you've got, Volkswagen has what, 2 electric crossovers right now?
Mm-hmm.
Is there not room for a lifestyle electric crossover flagship. This,
yeah,
I'm really struggling with the logic that resulted in this car.
At some point, you've got to wonder whether or not there is a little bit of, the Volkswagen Group has always been pretty good at understanding where the boundaries are between brands too, right? And not that long ago, I was driving the Q8 e-tron and SQ8 e-tron. So you start to get much more SUV, more expensive and a little bit bigger, and suddenly you are kind of creeping up on something like Q8 e-tron too. I don't know if that plays into the logic at all, but I do want to go back quickly. We had a comment from Kyle from Ebo293 who says, I know it's early, but were you able to play with the software some? And then, sorry, you weren't repeating anything. We've just been kind of carrying on. So the answer is yes. The answer is I actually got a really deep dive on the infotainment software. We talked a little bit about the HUD. There's a lot going on here. Unfortunately, almost all of that is embargoed right now. What I can say is that there is a new software set up for ID.7. It is all housed in a 15-inch screen, centrally mounted 15-inch screen. And honestly, I'm really excited to write more. We actually have this written and ready to go when the embargo lifts on the 17th. So I wanted to bring that comment up to tell Ebo and to tell all of you guys, please do check out InsideEVs.com on April 17. I got to find the time, but we'll put it in the notes when we grab the embargo. Because we're going to update both the review that I wrote, and we'll have some other content too that gives you a lot more information about ID.7, including a lot of the stuff that I was able to do with software, the voice control system, and things like that. So, man, lots on ID.7. Going back just a little bit, Nick Nordic said, well, Justin Schultz said the Ocho, I think in reference to your dodgeball, many dodgeball references so far. We've got Nick Nordic saying, I understood the US gets the big one. I think that you mean the battery pack. That is not true. US and German PR right now are telling us that is not true. There is no plan to bring the bigger battery pack to North America right now, as far as we know. Happy to double check on that and see if anything has changed. But as of this podcast, we're just getting the smaller 82 kilowatt hour battery pack. John 209 said that 39K ID4 never happened. I'm not sure if you mean that they're not actually available, right? Like they're being advertised right now. If you go to Volkswagen.com in the US, they're being advertised at 39 and change, right? So it's just under $40,000. I cannot vouch for their one being at the dealership here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, or wherever you live, John, but they definitely are saying that too. So, and let's see, anything else good? So Paladin Dark Horse, there's a pack of universal charger stations, and what is the actual range for the EV car? We touched on that a little bit, but just to reiterate, if you guys missed that, we do not know right now. For the for the smaller battery pack, rear drive, single motor version of the car, Volkswagen itself is still just estimating WLTP range of 300, or the equivalent of 382 miles. A good guess might be, or a good conservative guess might be around 300 miles EPA when that actually gets rated for the US, but we do not know the range right now. So
we're not going to know the range for a minute. I mean, honestly,
it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while just to set that. Yeah, we're well more than a year out before this thing goes on sale in the US, before deliveries start. So there will be a trickle of that kind of information. EPA fuel economy, EPA range tends to happen very close to on sale date. So
I will say smidge 204 coming in. Too bad that pattern isn't going to be a production option. don't put it past them, because I mean, we said the same thing about the e-tron concept, and now Audi is building a special edition of that. So
that's right.
You never ever know. I mean, they might be listening.
Yep. Kyle, maybe you can link that up. We had an awesome kind of first look video of the Audi e-tron offering a limited edition of I think 75 units in that pre-production or in that wrap, that camo wrap that it debuted in. We'll be able to show you again on the 17th. On the 17th, we have photos of the thing uncamouflaged, and I'll just say The camo does a really good job of hiding it. I was noticing, I was trying to take photos for myself, and you can't see a lot of the body angles. You can't, it's a pretty subtle body side and things like that because it's so aerodynamically tuned. But it's better looking with a wrap off. Let's put it that way. I don't think that's breaking the embargo.
I mean, if people want to go and look at it, I shot a video with the concept car that inspired this last year. It's somewhere. Let's see how quickly Kyle can find that. There's a challenge for him.
We've got Kyle scrambling in the background. And then Brad says, what's the release date? Again, we don't know. We don't have the exact release date. We know that it's going to be the second half of 2024 is the information that we have in the US. Earlier than that in Europe. Although no official release date has been announced. Check again on the 17th. Maybe VW will surprise us with a European release date as well. North American release date is still going to be a little farther out. Geez, guys, thank you for all the feedback, comments, and questions. Keep them coming, and we will do our best to answer any of them that we get after the live broadcast. Well, if you guys have interesting ones, we'll circle back, but we can also answer in comments on YouTube as well. Brandon, let's move down the electrification scale to a hybridized car. What are you driving this week?
Yes, I have been driving a car that I've been pleasantly surprised by, the Lexus RX. I need to look up because the naming is never ever consistent. Where is it?
F Sport Performance.
Lexus RX 500h F Sport. I was not sure if there was a plus in there or if there's a performance in there or any of those things. So right away, you can see the video footage. It still looks like a beluga whale from the front, but my test car wears this gorgeous rose gold copperish color. It's called Copper Crest. It pops in different lights. It appears orange. It appears pink. It appears copper. I'm absolutely in love with this shade. We've been talking a lot every time there's been a Lexus on the podcast. We've been talking about how good Lexus is doing with colors, and this is just another example of that. It's stunning in person. This is the first time that Lexus has really done a proper performance version of the RX. It's not as wild as the hierarchy is very unclear. It is not like a regular F Sport where it is just styling. There are mechanical changes, like thorough mechanical changes, like unique powertrains, but it's also not as wild as something like the IS500 F Sport Performance, where it's got like a full-on V8. Yeah. This is a turbocharged 2.4 liter 4-cylinder paired with 2 electric motors, one on each axle, and together the entire affair produces 366 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. Wow. Lexus says that's good for a 0 to 60 time of 5.9 seconds, and that kind of feels conservative to me. Yeah. I would not be surprised if this thing was closer to around 5 seconds. It goes really well. I mean, there's always power available. It's only got a 6-speed, so either you're not constantly fighting with the transmission. The paddle shifters actually respond to what you're doing, which is something I've never experienced, and I've been driving Lexus RXs for damn near 20 years now. It sounds fantastic. I got back after my first drive and I had to double check that this wasn't some kind of small V6. It sounds burly and angry, and it's the best sounding 4-cylinder I've ever heard in a Lexus or Toyota product. It's really a peach.
That's super impressive. Yeah. And this is kind of a sleeper vehicle too. So we're super used to there being an RX hybrid. We were talking about a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the RX 350 hybrid that I drove, which very lovely, like quiet and easy to get around in and reasonably efficient and all of that stuff. But this is a different animal entirely. This is Lexus doing kind of the newer trick. I want to say the Toyota Lexus trick, but actually a lot of automakers are doing it, which is hybridization for efficiency, yeah. Performance, yeah. Right. They're really trying to get a lot of power out of this.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's still returning 27, 28 miles per gallon like EPA. Like, it's not an inefficient vehicle, but it is quick. Now, not all of us agree, it seems.
Yeah, Naveen the Machine is a familiar viewer here of the Happy Hour podcast, and I think that he's taken us to task on the RX and Lexus in the past, right? He says the RX 500H is so pathetic it can't even outperform the RAV4 Prime or a V6 Camry, both of which can do 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds. Yet the RX costs more than both while still riding on a RAV4 or Camry chassis.
Okay, let's dissect this. I've said this on this podcast before. I might have even said this to Naveen the Machine before. It rides on X Cars chassis is no longer a relevant argument, not in the age of modular platforms. This is Toyota's new global architecture. Versions of this underpin everything from the Corolla to the Camry to the RX to the Lexus LX. I mean, TNGA is everywhere in various forms. So you cannot say, well, just because it's a TNGA car that it performs like a Camry or a RAV4. That's like saying I don't even know. It's incorrect.
This is a very old argument from honestly ages ago when the big three were doing things like building multiple vehicles on essentially the same running gear and doing platform engineering. This is not that, right? No. This is truly, you can make incredibly unique and very different vehicles that share a platform. That's the genius of the modularity of them.
And the thing is, it's talking about the straight line performance, and that might be relevant. Like, according to the manufacturer estimates, it is slower than those cars, but the real world case, first of all, like I said, the timing feels very conservative. I think this thing is closer to around 5 seconds. I honest to God do. But stopwatch arguments also don't take into account the way that a car behaves, the responsiveness that you experience when you're not trying to go fast. And that's really satisfying in its own way. When you dip into the accelerator and there's always power there, you don't have to think about it. It really changes the way you're driving. And also, relative to RAV4 and Camry specifically, this thing will drive rings around them. It feels much more pinned down. The suspension is more focused. It's got adaptive dampers. It's got all the kit that Lexus has already been putting in its F-Sport cars. And well, I'm not a huge fan of the S-Sport models. I can't really argue that they are more engaging to drive around than a regular Lexus. They've just got better hardware for that. So I think it's very easy for us as car enthusiasts to criticize a brand like Lexus, and we need to be cautious not to do it when they really put in the effort. And this feels like a vehicle that, like, there's been a lot of effort put in to make an engaging to drive, fun to drive Lexus RX, and that's what this is.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I'm really curious about this vehicle overall too, because it is such an interesting take on a Lexus performance vehicle. I will also say, maybe slightly in Naveen's defense and being a little bit critical of Lexus, I think that people who are paying attention to cars over the last 30 years know that Lexus F, quote unquote, is a thing, but I don't think Lexus has done a particularly great job of defining what F means. Right?
I'm not sure Lexus knows what it means.
Yeah,
because they throw the letter at everything that rolls, and the gulf between a UX F Sport and an IS 500 F Sport Performance and an RX F Sport, it's all over the map.
Right. Yeah, and this is a problem that we've seen with Toyota too, with like TRD kind of being all things to all vehicles at different points. Is it a trim level? Is it a way of getting like a kind of a more aggressive set of wheels and tires with an appearance package, or is it something that's like the V8 Fs of current day and old that were truly like bloodthirsty, sometimes scary to drive sports cars, right? Lots of them have been great. Some of them have been completely weird, but it doesn't do a good job of saying, of giving that kind of brand recognition that when I'm buying a Lexus that has an F badge on it somewhere, I know roughly speaking what I'm going to get and what the sort of ethos of that vehicle is. Again, this can be great. That doesn't kind of solve that problem too.
Yes. Now, do you guys want me to rail on it? Because there are some things that drive me nuts about this car.
Absolutely. Let's hear. Pick some nits.
It beeps. It does nothing but beep. When it's not accelerating, it beeps. When a car drives in front of you, drives like perpendicular to you, and you let off the brake to roll forward, it beeps.
Yeah.
It is, if you take your eyes off the road, I had to dig into the god-awful infotainment system to find this. If you take your eyes off the road, which you have to do to work the giant touchscreen, it beeps at you. I'm all for active safety. I think there are some great active safety systems out there. I think by and large, Toyota and Lexus make some of the best active safety arrangements on the market. This thing is so overkill in the way that it beeps at you and tries to warn you and tries to hold your hand. And a lot of the stuff, like you cannot, or at least I can't figure out how you can't turn off that cross traffic beeping. Yeah. So every time, like if you're at a stoplight or stop sign, and there's a car passing and you go to let off your brake before that car is cleared out from in front of you, it will beep at you. It flashes on the HUD. It flashes everywhere. It's, it's a very frustrating experience because I just find myself driving along, and especially if I'm in a parking lot or a neighborhood, I'm just shouting at this car because it just beeps at me all the time.
The active parking sensor thing that you can't like fully defeat, that you have to like turn off every single time it activates is super frustrating. And whether that's not purely a Lexus thing, but like it definitely is one that we have experience with in the past. Not super fun.
Yeah, and like the infotainment is better than what came before, but only because what came before was the worst infotainment of the last 20 years.
Right.
No, I mean it is very pretty to look at. It is super, super responsive. I have, this is the third or fourth Lexus and /Toyota product I've had with the latest infotainment, and I just can't come to grips with it, man. I don't know if I'm getting old, but like just navigating the different sections, like trying to change a radio station, there are very few physical buttons because that's the trend nowadays. I'd give my right arm for like a tuning knob, because just the simple act of changing radio stations is kind of an involved affair. And this is a frustrating vehicle to live with in a lot of very small ways.
Yeah.
And I don't, it doesn't have to be, because the mechanical bit, the actual driving of this car is really fun.
So this is a little bit of a digression, but we had a lot of conversations around the old team chat and conversations online with the news that, and Brandon, you'll have to correct me because I'm probably going to get this wrong, but Chevy has announced that they are no longer in the near future not going to be supporting Apple CarPlay or Android Auto.
In their EVs. The EVs will be the ones that will be doing about it.
And one thing that occurred to me as this conversation is going on is kind of what you're talking about. Because we're all so used to our phones, no matter what operating system they're working on, forget about whether they work well in our cars or not. It's a little bit like the old argument about having a volume knob or quote unquote normal controls for your radio. When they're all the same for everybody starts to understand how to use them. You spend a lot of time internalizing how to use them. And when everything else can be new, but those are sort of your points of orientation in a vehicle, you can do it quickly, right? It's what I yell at people for calling intuitive. It's not truly intuitive, but it's learned behavior from a long time ago, right? We all have that with our smartphones. And one of the reasons why mirroring your phone in the car has been so successful and something that people are so vocal about is because we know how to use our phones, right? And we don't know how to do all this stuff with every new car that comes along. Even if it's something you're driving for a long time, you might not know.
So 2 things for the audience. I have not used the word intuitive in writing in 5 years, and it's almost exclusively because of Seth.
Yeah.
Secondly, the thing is, when automakers make these decisions, we, the media, and you, the consumer, need to be vocal about it. When Honda got rid of volume knobs, everybody complained so loudly that now, 7 years later, Honda is still calling out that it has a volume knob in press releases.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
every new car that comes out, they can roll out a new car and there will be a mention of a physical volume knob, because the the opposition to it was that vocal.
It came up with ID.7. We didn't talk about this when we were talking about ID.7 at the top, but one of the things that was highlighted from the get-go was the fact that Volkswagen put a light behind the slider control for the temperature for driver and passenger and for stereo volume, because inexplicably was it just ID4? Or was it other? That was other.
No, it's ID4 Golf
right.
Or GTI Golf R. I mean, it's been a thing for a little while now.
When that slider control debuted, it wasn't backlit, so like you just couldn't see it in so many different conditions. You had to know it was there and kind of guess where you were going. And of course, sure, we talked to, journalists talk to PR people. PR people don't make cars. Journalists don't buy a ton of cars. But we are having that conversation. We're also representing the conversation that we hear from you guys when you guys are leaving comments on stories, when you're emailing us, when we're reading feedback on social media and things like that. We are also bringing that to the people that we're talking to at the automakers. And eventually those messages get through. And every once in a while, where it actually makes sense, it does make a difference. These things do matter. So yeah, being vocal is absolutely critically important. And it is interesting to see what lengths to which the same thing with I'm all Volkswagen all the time these days because I just got out of there. But the touch controls on the steering wheel too. Like, we understand that Volkswagen has gotten such a tremendous amount of feedback on those that they are kind of retreating from that position and going back to having physical buttons. Or kind of individual buttons, not touch capacitive buttons on the steering wheel, which I think everybody thinks is a pretty big victory.
It's a huge victory. I mean, I remember lapping a Golf R or a GTI for our awards testing in the California desert, and it was 80 degrees outside. And as I'm lapping, I bumped on the heated steering wheel button, and that's not fun,
right?
That is not fun.
Oh man. All right. Well, that's a good segue. Let's talk about so now moving to the totally non-electrified thing. So if anybody from Inside EVs is still hanging out, we're welcome to have you, or you're welcome to stay, but we're moving into full ICE territory here. The car that I just got rid of as of last week was one that we had last year for the Motor One Star Awards. And in fact, it won our Performance Car of the Year award, the Audi RS3 sedan. Or Kyle's desktop too. For those of you listening on audio, Kyle just showed all of his secret work on his desktop instead of the Audi RS3.
Lots of embargoed top secret information.
Absolutely. Somebody take a screenshot of that. You're going to get lots of incredible information. No. All right. Audi RS3. Brandon, you did a first drive on this car. We all drove it extensively last year, like I said, on the track and on the road for Star Awards. Everybody kind of fell in love with it to varying degrees, but certainly it was super impressive. I was really excited to be able to have a little bit of time in this, and I did have kind of a rough week last week. I didn't get to do as much driving as I would like, but I found out one thing that was really critically important with this car, because I know that it's screaming fast. I know that it's hilarious to drive. I know that it's got the feature that I always forget that allows all the torque to go to the inside wheel on a corner so that I can either drift or just really, really shorten my apex when I'm cornering. Just amazing torque vectoring on the car in a way that feels kind of natural and really fun. What I didn't know was, could my large body fit in it with children behind me in car seats? And the answer is pretty much yes. So
I'm actually surprised by that.
Yeah, it's really tight back there. I think if you have very young children, if you have babies in rear facing car seats and you're a taller person, it's going to be hard to make it a go. Or if you have adult children or teenagers or things like that, it may be difficult if people actually need leg room. I don't think it's the most practical car in the world, but it is. Oh, thanks. Yeah, good one. It is practical enough to be able to fit my small children back there. Decent sized trunk. So it's an A3 at the end of the day, right? It's an A3 that's got a real snarly turbocharged 5-cylinder under the hood, but.
I mean, for what it's worth, we weren't strictly supposed to do this, but we lapped a track with 4 people in this car.
That's right.
It was with 4 adults in the car with helmets on. So
not really at pace, but approaching pace. Anyways, yeah. Man, I love this thing. Every time I get into an RS3, I really like it. This is honestly like one of my favorite Audi RS products in a long time, in many years.
Yeah, it is. I always say like the number one car that I would like new car I would buy if I had to buy one tomorrow would be a Bronco. The number two would be an RS3. I absolutely adore this thing, and you know I've written about this at length. Did the first drive, did the awards testing with it. It has so much depth in that it can go from being like a track weapon to a drift car to a just very comfortable luxury sedan that you can drive around. It looks fantastic, even in kind of a boring color like this. I absolutely adore this thing. And the thing is, you don't need to load this up with options. You can very easily buy like a base RS3 and never be disappointed in it.
Yeah, it starts around 58 grand. The one that I had was roughly like the one that we had out at in California last year, 66 or $67,000. I agree. Now I'm forgetting. I pulled up the name and I'm forgetting the name of this color, this blue,
Kimura gray.
Kimura gray, which has got a really like blue tint to it that you don't see in all of the stock photos that they have on the website. I think it's a great looking, really interesting color that pops in sunlight in a way that you don't necessarily expect. So it's not nearly as boring as a kind of like gray or silver Audi. It's not quite as exciting as the green one, which we all really, really dig. But the car definitely looks like it's purposeful. And as you're saying, Brandon, I think it's a really easy thing to live with too. Justin is back saying he'd be really happy with an RS3 and an ID.7 in his garage, and that his wife and I need two cars anyways. That'd be a really fantastic two-car pairing. If you, I mean, certainly if you had to stay within the Volkswagen family, but even if you didn't, like you're really getting a lot done with those two vehicles.
I can say like this is one of those cars that like when we do like, first of all, I'm for the Inside EVs fans, please don't break out the pitchforks for this for me on this. This is a car that I'm really going to miss when everything goes electric. It's such a unique car with the 5-cylinder that it kind of makes me sad about combustion engines going away, just because they can be so charming, and so much for this car is what's under the hood. I think it would be brilliant as an EV, but man, this thing like around 6,000 RPMs at like wide open throttle, like it's divine. It is so good.
It's snarly and it's very manageable. The car compliments you as a driver when you're doing something aggressively on the track, but it also has very high limits too. So I think that somebody's, more talented than me could get a lot more out of it. It reminds me, I know that I said this at the time that we were at least on site, but it reminds me in a weird way of the way that I felt about the Mitsubishi Evo in the later stages of that vehicle's very long, the Evo 10 in the later stages of that vehicle's existence, because it felt so special and so unique in the marketplace. I think that the RS3 operates in kind of a similar envelope right now. There aren't a lot of analogs. There are lots of cars that are roughly the same power or roughly the same size or same price, but they don't feel the same. They don't sound the same, and they don't go around the road the same way.
Even something like a CLA 45 AMG, like the direct competitor to this car, like it does not feel quite as special as the RS3 does. Yeah, there's just something like this is one of the great ones. Like I'm really gonna miss this car. I'm probably going to book a few more loans with it before it goes out of production.
Nick Nordic brings up a really good point that the Ioniq 6N was tested by a German tuner and he loved the artificial gears, and that there is a life after ICE engines. Nick, you're 100% right. Listen, we're very excited every time we drive, especially something performance oriented that is electrically powered. I think that the engineers and product planners working for the car companies, both traditional and the new ones, understand that people want to have fun when they're driving too. And whether you've got something that's burning gas or diesel or just electrons, they are going to miss a huge segment of the audience if they aren't attentive to that. Right. So something like Ioniq 6N is absolutely something that we're looking forward to. There are going to be really fun EVs. There are really fun EVs. There are going to be characterful and unexpected EVs that dummies who want to drive around a racetrack like Brandon and I will enjoy too. So
well, the great thing is that automakers, by and large, the people that work at car manufacturers are design cars and build and engineer cars are still enthusiasts. And I had this conversation with a lot. I wrote a whole story about it with the chief technical officer at Lamborghini. They don't want to do an EV to do an EV. Like they could. They're very good at engineering. They're part of the Volkswagen group. They could do this. Yeah. But they want an EV that does more than just blast to 60 in 1.5 seconds. They want a Lamborghini. Yeah. So there's definitely a vocal group on the engineering side of this business that is still trying to build EVs that match the excitement and the character of combustion powered cars. And that's what I'm really excited to see. I want to see that continue to happen.
Yeah, when Lamborghini starts building those cars, they did a very, very far out concept years ago where they were talking about like integrating the batteries into the body structure and the body panels and things like that to get the weight down, but also the power density up. Those are going to be really exciting times, and they're not nearly so far away as they maybe seemed even just a little bit ago. So, right on. All right, Brandon, that's a lot of talk about Volkswagen products with a heavy helping of Lexus Toyota thrown in the middle. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Sorry again, we pointed this out in the post, but sorry again for missing last week. I had a sort of family emergency last week, so we were unable to go.
And also everybody was traveling everywhere.
Yeah, every car maker in the world decided to do a first drive program. So if you haven't yet, I highly encourage you to take a look at motor1.com. We've got tons of new first drives both on the site right now, still a couple to come up, Inside EVs as well. We've got new Prius. Tom Malogny was just driving the new Prius. We've got that on Inside EVs and Motor One. That's a super exciting story. I was hoping that we could grab Tom for a few minutes on this, but maybe we'll get him next week because he did a 70 mile per hour range test of the Prius Prime as well, which was awesome. What else is up right now?
Oh, crap. I don't know, man. We have this week. I know that's why I don't remember. This week we've published BMW M2. We have published Hyundai Ioniq 6, Subaru Impreza, Mazda CX-90, Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV, Volkswagen ID.7, Toyota Prius Prime, and in about 35 minutes the Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid. And that's it for this week.
Jesus, that's a lot.
It's been a week, man. It's been a week.
Well, so hopefully if you guys are listening to this, you want some great reading material now or over the weekend, go check out motor1.com or Inside EVs. Lots going on there. Like I said, please like and subscribe to the Motor One YouTube channel if you're seeing this. We'd love to have you subscribe to the podcast and get us on audio as well, if that's your thing. And join us next week, Thursday at 2:30 Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. As we're talking about a whole lot of new cars. Thanks everybody for joining us. Have a great week.